guys, today we are going to be talking about part 1 of our color theory worksheets. This video will cover the production of your worksheet, or you can also print it off online, as well as the process for actually completing it. Now if you choose to draw yours, you'll see that I just found 2 round objects to work with that would fit inside of each other while still giving me enough room to get my color down. And then I'm just going to use my ruler and eventually freehand to start to make this chart. The one thing that you're going to want to remember is that your boxes should be directly across from each other so that you can easily identify things like complementary colors or triad, anything like that. It's important that your boxes are all kind of equal, and you'll notice that I adjust as I go to make sure that they're pretty close. Next, I'm going to label a few important things with my color wheel, such as complementary colors, which are opposite of each other, or triad colors, which are in 3 sections of equal distance away from each other on the color wheel. Finally, I'll also note analogous colors, which are located next to each other on our color wheel. You'll see here that I made our color charts the same way as I did for the graphite one. I just traced my ruler and then I'm going to separate it into 6 boxes. We are going to be focusing on monochromatic and complementary colors in these boxes. So monochromatic being a color plus black or white, and complementary being colors that are opposite from each other on the color wheel, resulting in neutral grays in the middle between the 2 mixes. So at this point I'm going to start with my color wheel, and you'll notice that I end up filling in the box fully with the colored pencil. Now I am using the watercolor pencils that you guys have in your kits, so I will eventually go back and add water to these. And I will say that adding water really brightens up the color and makes them more vibrant. So if you did end up going and getting these supplies, I would highly recommend doing that extra step of adding the water. Here we'll do a little bit of a jump ahead, and you'll notice that I finished that first section of analogous colors, and now I'm going to be going from yellow to blue. As I'm working on my chart, I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of the yellow in all of the boxes that are yellow-green, green, and blue-green. What changes is how much yellow I put into there versus how much blue I put into there. Now, if you listen to the synchronous session today, you'll know that I am working with my primary colors and I'm mixing colors onto this chart, which I would highly recommend doing rather than using secondary color pencils that you have in your kit. Knowing how to mix your colors is going to be really important, so this is a good practice. And it also will be nice to know how the watercolor pencils function with each other. Getting back to the chart itself, I'm going to add more yellow into my yellow-green box than in my green box. So about 75% yellow, 25% blue, and then once I'm working on my green box, it should be about a 50-50 split. So you can kind of identify that by doing even layers. So if I do 2 layers of yellow and 1 layer of blue, I know that I'm gonna have more yellow in that box than blue, right? So it'll be more of a yellow-green. If we are trying to just get a green tone, I'll do equal amounts. And then blue-green, obviously, I'm gonna want to have more blue than yellow in it, so it'll be a 75-25 split favoring the blue. And then too, of course, the blue box will just be the pure color. Here you'll see that I start to mix my paint that I have put down there, and this is something that is really, really satisfying in my opinion. The colors brighten up like crazy. You can always go back and adjust the colors a little bit once the paint has dried as well. And you'll also note that I have a piece of paper on the right side so that I can clean off the paintbrush as I'm working with it, so that I don't pull too much of whatever color I have on there into my new section. One adjustment that I did make here was that my blue-green was a little bit too green still, so once it dried I did go back and adjust it to be a little bit more blue, which you'll see in the final picture that I took. I had already completed these charts at the time of recording this, but I will go through another section. Important things to note though are that I added black to the green in order to get that very darkest tone, and then if you look at the complementary mix, you'll see that the middle tones are pretty much gray in between the two, and that will be consistent no matter which complementary one you pick. So, switching to a fresh chart, this time I decided to use orange, which doesn't work quite as well for me. I really needed to go back and adjust these a bit more, but you'll see that I am adding more pigment the further right I am, and then as I go left, I'm going to decrease the amount of orange that I put down. Since we are using watercolor pencils, I'm not going to be adding any white watercolor to this. However, I am going to let more of the white paper show through, which will result in a similar tint that we would get by using some sort of white medium. Once I have my orange down, I also went back and added the black, which is how we're going to get these darker tones. And I put a little bit in each box, with there being more in the far right box. Next, I'm going to add water to brighten up these tones. If you're using any just kind of regular color pencil, you're going to want to be a little bit more careful when it comes to blending and getting an even mix. Overall, this chart is slightly less successful than the one on the front page that's green. However, I can always go back and add more orange and more black after it's dry and layer it on top without any issue. Next, we're going to be working on our complementary chart. I chose to use yellow and purple this time. And the first part of this is going to be pretty similar to a graphite chart that we have done, where we started with more pigment to less pigment. So you're going to have a really, really pigmented box on the far left, and then you're going to release pressure slightly as you work your way right. You should see a little bit of yellow in every single box, except for the pure purple box that's going to be on the far right, but I'm going to repeat that process both ways. So it's going to be a little bit harder to see now that I've put the purple down, but there will be more purple the closer you get to the solid tone, and then less as we get closer to the yellow tone. And this again is just building up those layers and adding more of one color versus the other color in order to get a gradual scale. once I start adding the water to these, you'll really notice how grayed out and muted the colors get immediately. So that is the big benefit of mixing complementary colors. You can get really nice neutral tones that are maybe tinted one way or another, depending on your overall color palette, while not having to necessarily have a gray colored pencil or something like that. Really quick here too, you'll notice that I go back and adjust that blue-green to be a little bit more blue. Now that the paint has dried, I can use the colored pencil just as a colored pencil and adjust those tones as necessary. One last thing to mention is that right here I was putting down the dry medium and the paper was actually wet from me painting on the back side of it, and that did affect how the colored pencil went down. You'll see that it was really dark on the right side of this box but not on the left. I actually ended up just powering through it and going forward with my laying down of the dry colored pencil anyway, but it might be beneficial for you to wait, although at the same time you more than likely will not have any color on the back of your paper, so no big deal with that. Just something to think about though, as you are maybe practicing with these down the road. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. We will be going over part 2 of color theory later in the week, so make sure that you are staying on top of your work. The empty worksheet as well as the completed worksheet are both posted on the Schoology page, so use those as a reference as you work through this.